Jazz. The day my ex left me, I thought I had lost the person I loved most. I was wrong. 3 years later, he left something at my doorstep that made me cry for a man I had spent years trying to forget. Jazz. It happened on a cold Monday morning. I was standing in my kitchen, waiting for the coffee machine to finish, when someone knocked on my apartment door. I wasn't expecting anyone. Jazz. My parents lived 2 hours away. My best friend Lily always texted before visiting, and my fiancé Daniel was at work. So when I opened the door, I found a stranger standing in the hallway. He was an older man, probably in his late 60s. He wore a dark coat and held a small black box in both hands. "Are you Emily Carter?" he asked. My heart skipped. Yes. He looked at me for a moment, almost as if he was trying to decide whether he had come to the right place. Then he held out the box. "This is for you." I stared at it. "For me?" he nodded. "Who sent it?" Jazz. The man didn't answer immediately. Instead, he looked down at the box, then back at me. His name was Michael. Everything inside me went completely still. Michael. Jazz. There are some names you can hear 1,000 times and feel nothing. And then there are names that can bring back an entire lifetime in a single second. Michael was one of those names. My first love. Jazz. My best friend. The man I once believed I would grow old with. And the man who broke my heart so completely that I had spent 3 years convincing myself I had finally forgotten him. As I looked at the box again, my hands started shaking. "Where did you get this?" the old man sighed. "Michael asked me to deliver it to you if something happened." My throat suddenly felt dry. Jazz. If something happened? He didn't explain. He simply placed the box in my hands. That's all he told me. I looked at the black box. There was no name, no address, no letter. Jazz. Just one small white envelope taped to the top. My name was written across it. Emily. I knew that handwriting. I had seen it on birthday cards, love letters, notes left on my refrigerator. Jazz. Little messages Michael used to write whenever he knew I was having a bad day. I stared at those 5 letters until my eyes filled with tears. The old man stepped back. "There's something else." Jazz. I looked up. He reached into his coat and pulled out a folded piece of paper. "Michael told me to give you this only after you opened the box." My heart started beating faster. "What is it?" "Yeah, I don't know." He handed it to me. I didn't open it. I couldn't. Not yet, because suddenly, Jazz. I was standing in my doorway with a gift from the one person I had promised myself I would never think about again. And I had a terrible feeling that whatever was inside that box, Jazz, it wasn't going to stay in the past. I looked at the old man. "Is Michael okay?" The man didn't answer. That silence was enough. My fingers tightened around the box. "Is he alive?" Jazz. The old man slowly looked away. And in that moment, 3 years of memories came rushing back. The first time Michael told me he loved me. The night he proposed, the promise we made. Jazz. The fight that ended everything. And the one sentence he said before walking away from me forever. "Emily, one day you'll understand why I had to leave." At the time, I thought it was just another lie. Jazz. Because that's what I believed Michael had become. A liar, a coward. A stranger wearing the face of the man I loved. But now, 3 years later, he had sent me a gift and suddenly, Jazz. I wasn't sure I had ever known the truth about our relationship at all. I finally opened the envelope. There was only one sentence inside. My hands began to tremble because it said, "Emily, Jazz. I'm sorry you had to learn the truth this way." I stopped breathing. And underneath that sentence was a second line. "Please open the box before you decide whether you still hate me, Jazz." I stared at those words for what felt like an eternity. Then I slowly closed my apartment door. I placed the box on the kitchen table, and for the first time in 3 years, I allowed myself to wonder, Jazz, what if the story I had told myself for 3 years was completely wrong? I reached for the lid, and just before I opened it, my phone rang. It was Daniel, my fiancé, Gaz. The man I was supposed to marry in 6 weeks. I looked at his name on the screen. Then I looked at the black box. For some reason I couldn't answer, because deep down, I already knew something. Gaz. Whatever was inside that box was about to change everything. I let the phone ring once, twice, 3 times. Then it stopped. A few seconds later, a message appeared. Daniel, where are you? Gaz. I've been trying to reach you. I stared at the screen. Normally, I would have called him back immediately. Daniel was my fiancé, my future husband, Gaz. The man who had spent the last year helping me rebuild a life I thought I had lost forever. He was kind. Everything Michael had stopped being, or at least, Gaz. Everything I believed Michael had stopped being. But that morning, with Michael's gift sitting in front of me, I couldn't think about Daniel. I couldn't think about the wedding, Gaz. I couldn't think about the future. All I could think about was the past. Michael and I had met when we were 22, Gaz. It wasn't one of those dramatic love stories where 2 people see each other across a crowded room and instantly know they were meant to be together. It was much simpler than that, Gaz. I was working at a small bookstore near the city centre. Michael came in every Saturday, always around the same time, always looking for the same kind of books, history, travel, old biographies, Gaz. One Saturday, I finally asked him why he never bought anything about the future. He looked at me and smiled, because the past is easier to understand. I laughed. Gaz, that's the saddest answer I've ever heard. Maybe I just haven't met the right person to show me the future. I rolled my eyes. That was a terrible line. Did it work? No, he smiled. Gaz, can I try again next Saturday? I should have said no. Instead, I smiled, and that's how it started. For the next 4 years, Michael became the center of my world. Gaz. He was there when I got my first promotion, when my mother got sick, when my father lost his job, when I was afraid, when I was happy, when I didn't know what I wanted. He was the person I called, Gaz. And he always answered. We had our problems, of course, every relationship does. But I never doubted his love, not until the last 6 months. That's when everything changed, Gaz. Michael started becoming distant. At first, I thought he was stressed. He had recently started a new job, and the hours were terrible. Then he began coming home late. He stopped answering my calls, Gaz. He would sit beside me at dinner but barely speak, and whenever I asked what was wrong, he gave me the same answer. I'm just tired. But I knew Michael and something was wrong. One night, Gaz, I finally confronted him. We were sitting in our apartment. Rain was hitting the windows. I remember that night because it was the last time I saw the man I thought I knew. Michael, please tell me what's happening. He didn't look at me. Nothing. Don't do that. Do what? Lie to me. He finally looked up. His eyes were tired, not angry, not cold, just broken. Gaz. And that scared me more than anything. Emily, he whispered, I need you to trust me. I remember laughing. It was a nervous laugh, a hurt laugh. Trust you? You're disappearing every day. You don't talk to me. You don't tell me where you go. You don't even look at me anymore. I know. Then tell me what's happening. I can't. That answer destroyed something inside me. Can't, Gaz. He looked down. Not yet. I stood up. Is there someone else? His face changed, just for a second. But I saw it, that hesitation, that tiny pause, and it was enough. My heart broke. Michael, guys. He closed his eyes. Emily, please. Is there someone else? Yes. One word, that's all it took. I felt like the floor disappeared beneath me. I remember asking him who she was. I remember screaming, Gaz. Crying, begging him to tell me what I had done wrong. But Michael wouldn't give me a name. He only kept repeating the same thing. I'm sorry. Those 2 words became the soundtrack of my heartbreak. Gaz. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I left that apartment that night. I went to my sister's house, and I never went back. 3 days later, Michael disappeared. He quit his job, changed his phone number, moved out of the apartment, and vanished. I spent months trying to understand what had happened. Then one day I saw him. He was sitting in a restaurant with a woman. She was beautiful, and she was holding his hand. I didn't confront him. I didn't make a scene. I simply stood outside the window and watched. That was the moment I finally accepted it. Michael had moved on, So I did the only thing I knew how to do. I let him go. It took me almost a year to stop crying, another year to stop checking his social media, and almost 3 years before I could hear his name without feeling something inside me break. Then Daniel came into my life. He was different. He didn't make grand promises. He didn't write love letters, He didn't sweep me off my feet. He simply stayed. When I was sick, he brought me soup. When I had a bad day, he listened. When I was afraid to love again, he didn't pressure me. Slowly, carefully, I learned to trust again, and eventually Daniel asked me to marry him. I said yes. I thought my past was finally behind me, until that black box arrived. I sat at the kitchen table. The room was silent, Michael's final words were still in my head. Please open the box before you decide whether you still hate me. I slowly lifted the lid. Inside was a small silver key. Underneath it was an old photograph, I picked it up. My breath caught. It was a picture of Michael and me, but I had never seen it before. We were standing outside the bookstore where we first met. I was laughing. Michael was looking at me, not at the camera, at me. On the back of the photograph, he had written something. I turned it over, and my heart stopped. This was the happiest day of my life. My eyes filled with tears, But then I noticed something. There was another line underneath. The key will take you to the place where I kept the truth. I stared at the words, the truth. My hands began shaking. What truth, What had Michael been hiding? I picked up the silver key. There was a tiny number engraved on it, 21. I had no idea what it meant. Then I remembered the old man. He had said there was something else, I reached for the folded paper he had given me. I opened it. There was an address. My heart started racing. It was an address I knew, an old apartment building, The same building where Michael and I had lived together. I stared at the paper. Then I looked at the key. Rodum 214, my old apartment, the place where our relationship had ended, The place where I had cried myself to sleep. The place where I had believed Michael had betrayed me. And suddenly, I understood Michael hadn't sent me a gift. He had sent me back to the beginning, I stood up. My phone rang again. Daniel. This time I answered. Hi. There was silence on the other end. Then Daniel spoke. Emily, are you okay? I looked at the box. I'm fine. You don't sound fine. I swallowed. I need to go somewhere. Where? I hesitated. Then I said the name. Michael's old apartment. The silence that followed was different, longer, heavier. Why? I didn't know how to answer. Because I didn't want to lie to Daniel, but I didn't know the truth myself. I received something from Michael. Daniel's voice suddenly became quiet. What did you receive? A gift. What kind of gift? I don't know yet. Emily. There was something strange in his voice, something I couldn't understand. What? He didn't answer. Daniel? Finally, he said something that made my blood run cold. Don't go there. I froze. Why just don't? Why, Daniel? I can't explain. My heart started pounding. You know something? No. Then why are you telling me not to go? Emily, please. I stood there, holding the phone. And for the first time since I had met Daniel, I felt that familiar fear, the same fear I had felt years ago. The feeling that someone I loved was keeping something from me. Daniel, I whispered. Yes? Have you ever met Michael? Silence, and in that silence, I got my answer, Jazz. I slowly lowered the phone from my ear, because suddenly, I wasn't thinking about Michael anymore. I wasn't thinking about the gift. I wasn't even thinking about the past, Jazz. I was thinking about the man I was supposed to marry, and wondering, why did my fiancé know something about the man who broke my heart? I didn't go to the old apartment alone, Jazz. I told Daniel I needed some time. He wanted to come with me, but I refused. For the first time in our relationship, I didn't trust him enough to ask why. Maybe that was unfair. Maybe it was fear talking, Jazz. But after everything that had happened with Michael, I couldn't ignore the feeling in my heart. Something was wrong. I drove to the old apartment building just before sunset, Jazz. The place looked smaller than I remembered. The same cracked steps, the same faded walls, the same hallway where I had once stood crying, begging Michael to tell me why he was leaving, Jazz. I found the door to apartment 214. My hands were shaking as I took out the silver key. I pushed it into the lock, it turned. The door opened, the apartment was empty. Almost, Jazz. There was a small wooden table in the middle of the room, and on it was another box. My heart sank. I walked toward it. There was a note. Emily, if you're reading this, you finally came back, Jazz. I sat down, my eyes filled with tears. I know you believe I left you because I stopped loving you. I couldn't breathe. I know you believe there was another woman. My hands tightened around the paper, Jazz. Then came the words I had waited 3 years to hear. There was never another woman. I covered my mouth, a sob escaped before I could stop it. I kept reading. Michael explained everything, Jazz. 6 months before our breakup, his mother had been diagnosed with a serious illness. She needed treatment. The cost was more than his family could afford. Michael had taken a second job, then a third, Jazz. That's why he had been coming home late. That's why he had been exhausted. That's why he had been disappearing. But there was more. His mother had asked him not to tell me, Jazz. She was afraid I would feel responsible. She didn't want Michael to sacrifice his future for her. Michael had tried to handle everything alone, and then came the worst part, Jazz. The woman I had seen him with at the restaurant was his mother's doctor. He hadn't been having an affair. He had been trying to arrange treatment. The woman holding his hand, Jazz. She had been comforting him after his mother passed away. I closed my eyes. Everything I had believed for 3 years was wrong. Michael hadn't stopped loving me. He had been falling apart, Jazz. And instead of trusting me with the truth, he had pushed me away. I kept reading. I wanted to tell you everything, Emily. I wanted to ask you to stay, but I was afraid, Jazz. Afraid you'd spend your life feeling trapped by my problems. So I made you hate me. I stopped. My heart shattered. He had broken his own heart because he thought he was protecting mine, Jazz. But there was one final page. I picked it up, and the words on it changed everything again. I didn't send you this gift because I want you back. I froze, Jazz. I sent it because I finally learned that love isn't about deciding what is best for someone without asking them. I was wrong. I should have trusted you, Jazz, and I should have let you choose whether you wanted to stay. Tears rolled down my face. Then I read the final sentence. I know you are getting married soon, Jazz. I hope he gives you the one thing I couldn't give you. I stared at the page. The courage to trust you with the truth. I couldn't move. Then I heard footsteps behind me. I turned, Jazz. Daniel was standing in the doorway. My heart stopped. You followed me. He looked at me. His face was pale. Emily, please listen. I stood up. Did you know? He didn't answer. Daniel, guys. Yes, my heart broke all over again. You knew about Michael, not everything, but you knew he didn't betray me. Daniel looked down. Yes, how? He was silent. I stepped closer. Tell me. Finally, Daniel whispered, Michael was my brother. Everything stopped. I stared at him. What? Half-brother? I couldn't speak. Daniel explained that he and Michael had the same father, Jazz. They had grown up apart. Only a few people knew Michael had contacted Daniel after his mother died. He knew Daniel and I had started dating, and he made Daniel promise not to tell me. Why, Jazz? Because he didn't want to come back into your life. I looked at the letter. Daniel continued. He told me you deserved to be happy. He knew you were finally moving forward. Then why send me the gift, Jazz? Daniel looked at the box. Because he knew he didn't have much time. My heart stopped. What do you mean? Daniel's eyes filled with tears. Michael was sick. I couldn't breathe. How sick, Jazz? Daniel shook his head. He had been fighting an illness for a long time. He didn't want you to know. I stared at him. Where is he now? Daniel didn't answer. I already knew. The room suddenly felt cold. Jazz. Daniel. He stepped toward me. Michael passed away 2 weeks ago. I broke. I sank into the chair and cried like I hadn't cried in years. Not because I wanted him back, Jazz. Not because I regretted choosing Daniel. I cried because the man I had spent 3 years hating had spent those same 3 years carrying a secret that had destroyed him, and I had never known, Jazz. Daniel sat beside me. For a long time neither of us spoke. Then he said something I would never forget. Michael loved you until the end. I looked at him. Why didn't he tell me? Daniel swallowed. Because he thought you would forgive him. I shook my head. Of course I would have, I know. Then why? Daniel looked at me. Jazz. Because sometimes people who are hurting don't understand that being forgiven is better than being forgotten. Those words stayed with me for weeks, months, years. I eventually married Daniel, Jazz. Not because he was Michael's brother. Not because of the secret. I married him because after everything that happened, we learned something important. Love cannot survive without honesty, Jazz. You cannot protect someone by making decisions for them. You cannot call silence kindness when the truth is what they need. And sometimes, the person you think destroyed your life, Jazz, was simply someone who didn't know how to ask for help. A year after our wedding, I visited Michael's grave. I brought the silver key with me. I placed it beside the flowers, Jazz, and I whispered the words I never got to say. I don't hate you. The wind moved softly through the trees. I smiled through my tears. I wish you had trusted me. Then I stood there for a while, Jazz, and for the first time, I felt peace. I finally understood what Michael's unexpected gift had really been. It wasn't the key, it wasn't the photograph, it wasn't even the truth, Jazz. The real gift was the chance to let go of the anger I had carried for 3 years. He had given me back a part of my life I thought I had lost forever. And maybe that was the greatest gift of all, Jazz. Because sometimes the truth arrives too late to change the past. But it can still change the way you live the rest of your life. So if there's one thing I learned from Michael, it's this, Jazz. Never assume you know why someone walked away. Sometimes people leave because they stopped loving you. Sometimes they leave because they are afraid. Sometimes they leave because they are hurting, Jazz. And sometimes they leave because they don't know how to tell you the truth. But no matter the reason, don't let silence become the story you believe forever. Ask, listen, Jazz. And if someone truly loves you, give them the chance to tell you the truth. Because the hardest thing in life isn't losing someone. Sometimes, Jazz, it's discovering the truth about them, only after you've spent years learning how to hate them. And that is why, 3 years after my ex left me, the gift he left at my door changed my life forever.